Welcome back to the SMITE Minor League, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. If you just missed what you may have seen on screen, HighResExpo.com is the place to go right now because there are tickets available already for this year's HighRes Expo in November. It's going to be an absolute blast. Trust me, head on over, buy your tickets now. Make sure you got your seat reserved. Get all your flight and hotel stuff worked out now. It's cheaper that way. It's a little bit of a pro tip for you. But that doesn't mean that we're all done here for the SMITE Minor League, of course. I've got Anatoly joining me on the desk to go over our second set of the day, which is going to be the Exordium's kind of debut back in the SML up against some tough opponents in Simplicity.
And what a way to do it, up against such a high-caliber roster of Simplicity, maniaKK and Faeles comparing into that solo jungle side. A tough matchup, seeing how Exordium kind of struggled in the last week up against Horizon.
Yeah, and we saw how difficult Horizon had it up against Team Queso. Team Queso not quite as good as Simplicity. That means we might be in for a bit of a one-sided affair here today, if you believe in the transitive property, that is. Picks and bans ready for game number one. Simplicity is a team that Exordium should be ready for in picks and bans, though. I mean,
yes.
you know what they pick, you know what they've played. That's kind of the one advantage I think these teams that are just joining into the minor league have as teams 5 and 6, is knowing what the other 4 teams play.
Especially with just having so much experience between these teams outside of playing together, like maniaKK, formerly SPL, DeathPanter, formerly SPL, even Faeles for a little stretch of time. So the identity and the style is already kind of set in stone from Simplicity. It's up to Exordium to really throw a lot of curveballs to throw off the more experienced team off guard.
Well, the Naja ban right away shows me that Exordium was watching MSI. We saw Genetics play this a little bit. We saw Faeles play this Naja a little bit. This has been a pick for Simplicity that they didn't play a whole lot of before the LAN, but certainly once they got to the LAN was a pick for them. And the other bans are really focused around DeathPanter for the most part. Well, I would say that normally is the mid laner, but it's really been StreakUp who pilots that Merlin most of the time when Simplicity get it.
That's true. DeathPanter does prefer his hunters, where StreakUp plays a lot of the mages from time to time, which is a good thing to have for your team to make your opponent keep guessing of where these picks are going to go at the end of the day.
Yeah, most of the time you know with Simplicity, if there's a hyper carry mage, it's probably going to StreakUp. He has kind of been the de facto guy for this roster when they need a late game hyper carry. DeathPanter is kind of the linchpin that keeps everything together and moving smoothly throughout, but it's really Faeles, maniaKK, Genetics in the early stages, and then StreakUp later on, it feels like, and they go right to one of DeathPanter's most comfortable picks in the Chernobog.
Gotta have that global pressure to influence some of the side lanes, but it's not going to be one physical hunter aggro, it's going to be 2. A Muzen comp having a little bit more pushing power, so we might actually see AMC. Actually, could be either way, because you might want pushing power in the long lane to put pressure and invade some purple buffs, or have it admit to invade the reds instead.
Yeah, that's true. I think that you can really interchange these 2 hunters in the mid lane pretty well, but I don't know. I just feel like anytime I see Chernobog for Simplicity, it's probably going to be in DeathPanter's hands. Kumbhakarna, Erlang, Shen, 2 heavy CC characters followed up by Exordium. One of the best ways to punish this immobile AMC is to just lock him in place that much more. He really can't get away from you.
Well, between Kumbha and Erlang, a good way to shut down those 2 gods are cripples. You got Ares still available if they want it. Artio is still on the table, but Fafnir is a necessity when you have 2 physical hunters.
And when your support is Genetics, who's one of the best Fafnirs in the world, SPL included. This is a real comfort pick for him. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Ares jungle come out here for Simplicity. I think that might be a pretty solid selection. I wonder if Exordium's going to think about that and ban it away. Right now, we're seeing Ares almost more often in the 2 roles that haven't been picked yet for Simplicity, which is jungle and solo.
Which was debuted by Chapo in the SMITE Minor League, but then transitioned by Scream into the SPL once it was a little bit later. With some of the changes in the mid-season update nodes, having that % damage from the Searing Flames onto actual jungle minions helps him clear the jungle, and when you're building penetration on him with Shoes and Magi, potentially a lot of aura items for that extra magical power, you're going to be having a good time in the jungle.
And Exordium's right on top of it. They ban it away right away. It'll be Ares and Kumbhakarna, their 2 bans, focusing out some of those magical gods that can also do quite a bit of damage at the same time. Simplicity does basically the same. It's just true mages in the Morrigan and the Thoth. And Chulainn is the pick here for maniaKK, though I guess Faeles could take this, but it's probably going to maniaKK.
So there's only 2 people that I think can actually embody Chulainn IRL, it's got to be maniaK, and then also obviously adapting.
Adapting? Really? Not. I mean, when I think of Chulainn, I still think of Benji, but he's quiet, I suppose.
Yeah,
to,
like
to
I meant
really
like
embody
no,
it.
like when we saw adapting. What was it in season 3 LAN?
Oh,
of, like
yeah.
taking candy from kid or taking kid from kid.
Yeah, whatever he said. I don't. I can't even kind of replicate it, but it is one of the greatest SMITE clips of all time, without a doubt. Jing, Poseidon round out the draft here for Exordium. I love Poseidon with heavy CC drafts, and that's what Exordium have. I like Exordium's draft here, totally. I just don't know if it's good enough to go up against Simplicity, who just drafted a Ganesh.
So where is the Ganesh going? If Fafnir's going support, we can agree on that.
No, I don't think it is now. I think it's going to be Fafnir solo, Chulainn jungle, Ganesh support. That's my prediction.
Interesting.
I mean, where else could it? Chulainn, it could. I mean, there's no way it's Ganesh jungle.
What
right?
if it is though?
Like, it can't clear. What do you mean? It can't. It doesn't clear the jungle. That's not how it works. You need to clear the jungle. Game 1. What's going on?
Clear. That's a whole different thing. Tom and Taco are going on. What's up, Taco? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Still doing pretty good, I should say.
Well, Alka. I don't know how good that guy's doing. Good passive here, and Froisan's going to show up, but that's how you start that one off, folks. 1 for 1. The first blood goes to Simplicity before I even get to introduce Doug. How dare you, folks? But I guess if you're going to start a game, that's how you do it.
Faeles with the jungle Ganesh as well, getting that assist true and through there for Genetics, who did get credited with that first blood bounty.
Wait a second.
It is Faeles on Ganesh jungle. Yes.
But where's the clear? How are you going to clear
That's what the B is for.
Oh, that's exactly what Aggro was talking about. Oh, okay. So DeathPanter is going to help clear the speed buff. I don't get it.
Sometimes, in the case of Simplicity, maybe feeling a little bit more open-ended in terms of what is viable to pick. Keep in mind, Exordium, one of the newer additions to the SMITE Minor League for the European competition.
Is there a world where they forgot to?
No, not at all.
Maybe it's supposed to be Fafnir
This is
jungle?
very much intended, and I'm confident I know why, but
Shoot.
I almost don't want to say it.
Write it down
Simplicity
and tell
just
me.
do not respect Exordium.
Okay, no, and I think that's totally fair. For what it's worth, I think Simplicity, a very talented team, they've always had a flair for the arrogance. And I say that almost neutrally. In a sports competition, in a competitive environment, sometimes you kind of want that Michael Jordan, I'm better than you kind of attitude. So if you're going to flex on me with Ganesh jungle, you've got to come out on top. Here's Faeles making his first move. Cozy going to be pushed up, knocked up, but just taking more damage. Genetics on the outside, and maniaK's able to find the kill off the assist of the jungle Ganesh. maniaK, though, in trouble, knocked up one more time. Then Erlang and Shen a little bit too powerful, and Alka finishes that one off. 1 versus 2. Faeles on the blink forward from Genetics. They're going to get him again. Rolson, nice, but Alka! I like that. That was cute. The blink in front of the blink.
Great body block to prevent Genetics from finding the hammer toss, but Genetics still not quite ready to give up on his dreams just yet, although might have bit off a little bit more than he could chew here, getting run down now by Alka, and Cozyx doesn't have anything left in the tank either. Full mana, but no jump, just a hammer toss.
Dodge it.
And no life left.
And you know what, Alka? You earned that taunt. You have earned that taunt, my man. Alka went down for first blood, so he is 2-1-1. But he's 2-1-1.
Blue buff still yet to be cleared because Faeles isn't really going to do any of that by himself on the Ganesh. But as far as the team fight is concerned, this is a very strong front line that Simplicity have drafted for themselves. Even though the Ganesh is a little bit unconventional, I do believe that this does have some viability against teams with less experience like Exordium.
Well, I think the deal here is that you're playing 4-on-5 until mid-game. And then you're better than if you had a jungler, arguably, because, that's, again, they're just having fun. But if we're really trying to decipher this one, Faeles is going to be nothing. But then when he's level 10 and impacting team fights, having a Ganesh involved with this squad is going to be very, very big, and your team fight, like you said, is going to be out of this world. So, like you said, Simplicity, if they can win the 4v5 early game, because Ganesh is a non-factor, well, we'll see what happens in the mid game. And at the end of the day, Simplicity, they are the team that came to the mid-season invitational. They certainly are very strong in their own right. You know, let's take a look at the numbers at that first ability here for Ganesh, because that Turn of Fate actually does do some damage there. It's not the best for clearing some of those larger camps, but the back camps go down pretty easily with a nice 1-3 combo.
Well, Assassin's Blessing is also going to help mitigate some of the jungle clear woes there that Faeles would normally have to experience on the Ganesh. And not only that, but I'm also placing a lot of value into the silence. Looking at Exordium's composition, they're pretty dependent on Alka as far as their hard crowd control is concerned. Froisan and Cozyx, sure, they can kind of disrupt the backline, but I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult for that Erlang to get up close and personal. Usually, space is what you need when playing against the Muzen Cobb, and DeathPanter, he's got so much of a front line that ideally it should be StreakUp and DeathPanter just getting a free cast in a lot of these mid-game team fights whenever they do start breaking out of the laning phase, but at least as far as the start is concerned, this is kind of in Simplicity's favor, because Simplicity, they're the ones choosing when to be aggressive for the most part.
Exactly. Playing the game on their own terms. Genetics going to do just that. Blink forward, gets a body block of his own after the stun. But Alka not going to stick around to take the extra damage. Erlang Shen, one of the most powerful characters in the game right now. And Ganesh is a really, hard counter is such a heavy phrase. But Ganesh counters a lot of what Froisan wants to do here on the Erlang Shen, between the box and the silence, like you mentioned. So, I'm eager to see how the team fights work out. I would love for Exordium to embarrass this selection, though. Their job right now is to invade every damn speed buff, and Simplicity are doing a good job of applying pressure in the mid to disallow that.
The problem is, I don't really see how Exordium works their way into Simplicity's jungle, because Genetics will be hitting in at level 5 any second now, and shouldn't really be that much longer. And not only that, but Faeles has actually had a consistent experience lead over Froisan. And I know that might sound a little bit crazy, but factor in, he's got 2 assists to his name, same as Froisan, of course, but he's also been clearing out his back harpies a little bit more consistently than the Erlang, and I like the idea of the Ganesh just to have the silence to prevent that turtle form knockup that's usually so pivotal in setting up the Poseidon Kraken.
Well, yeah, that's the other side of it, is that a lot of times junglers, well, not a lot of times, but one way junglers can get underfarmed or out of control is by looking for those ganks too often, and Ganesh will never look for a gank, so he's just forever farming. So he'll be up because there's nothing to distract him.
Well, Faeles right now trying to defend this blue buff here for maniaKK. Is going to have some backup from the boys there out of Simplicity, but the rotation's coming in from Cozyx as well. And nice Dharmic Pillars to zone everyone out. Cozyx and Froisan kind of just stuck watching until that Ganesh ultimate wears off.
That said, it's all gone now. Simplicity still trying to defend. There's the dash forward, but Exordium kind of have a good look here. That said, Chernobog, StreakUp, all the way from the left-hand side. Exordium fights first, but it's 2, make that 3 for Simplicity. The mid laner and the carry, not even here, the only ones left alive. Great plays there from Simplicity. StreakUp's ultimate really making the difference.
Don't think Exordium could have played any harder into Simplicity's hand here, and it's not done just yet. Genetics still looking to slow down Angry on this retreat. Hammer Toss going to be off the mark, though, and because of that, maniaKK no longer interested in the engagement. Meanwhile, DeathPanter does his best to try and invade on Tori's red, but will be unsuccessful. A nice defensive move there from the Jing Wei.
So early game, this is really where Exordium needs to find their lead. As we said, Faeles is largely a non-factor. That's right up on the right-hand side by the blue buff. We saw what that could do. And when it comes to team fights and defending these buffs as a group, that's where Faeles is going to be successful. But he's never going to jump into your duo lane and kill you. That's not the idea of this character. So with that in mind, I want to see Exordium doing that. I want to see Froisan in these lanes, because Simplicity realistically can't answer those ganks, but Exordium aren't doing that, and so they're giving Simplicity exactly what they're looking for, which is a non-factor early game, and then we'll beat you up at team fight time.
Well, I don't really think that Exordium aren't looking for the moments to be aggressive. They're trying to, but they're just forgetting about the fact that StreakUp has Living Nightmare. That's really all it comes down to. Everybody funnels themselves inside, from Exordium, that is. They funnel into the blue buff pit, trying to just swarm Faeles to prevent that Ganesh from escaping. And Angry had a pretty decent placement with the Kraken, although a little bit too far out there on the edges. But we can scratch that off the mark. But it's really just about the fact that this Chernobog is going to skew every single engagement that takes place. And with that in mind, Exordium, if they want to bring numbers to the fight, well, they've got to find the pick before StreakUp has a chance to get in there.
And this is what it's about. Genetic gets knocked up, but uses the transformation. Perfectly timed. Angry gets his beats chased out by Faeles, and this is going to be a bad spot for the Poseidon. Damage coming out from maniaKK and Genetics. The last one to find the hit. 3-1 and 3 for the support. Cozy answers back, but again, DeathPanter, 2 kills to his name. StreakUp didn't even need to show up. Simplicity are going to dive this. This might be a little bit over-aggressive, so they'll pull back. But Exordium lost that fight even without StreakUp there.
I just can't really understand the mindset behind trying to crack in a Fafnir. Maybe there's a world where you can be fast enough, but trying to beat out Genetics and the Draconic Transformation, that's just a waste of an ult there from the Poseidon.
Rough choice.
Easy play, too, for Simplicity to kind of counteract off of. It's not the first time that Exordium has alley-ooped themselves into Simplicity's court.
Well said. StreakUp was what changed, not the last fight, but the fight before that. And we both kind of agree that, like, whatever Exordium we're going to look for, StreakUp can kind of throw a curveball there or whatnot. And this is actually a bigger statement than just this game, because that's any game Chernobog's in, you'll always be at the numbers disadvantage. How do you either counteract that or take advantage of that?
It's just poor target selection from Exordium, poor grouping, poor positioning, and as a result, I mean, against a team like Simplicity, even if they are having a little bit of fun with the Ganesh jungle here, there's still a top-tier team for the European Minor League. I mean, these guys, some of them arguably SPL caliber even, and with that being said, you can't really afford to try and target the Fafnir. And to be fair, Simplicity doesn't really give Exordium a whole lot to work with in the early game, because even though the Ganesh is a bit unconventional, it's still a tank at the end of the day.
Well, Angry's here and could pop the Kraken. There's help from Faeles as he drops down the box. Gold Fury is going to be stolen. Just stolen. Just stolen. Oh, Exordium. Oh, on the bad side. Angry Kraken wouldn't have killed it, but if you stick to that one, that's a Gold Fury and you tie the game.
I don't know about sticking to that one. Right now, Alka might not even be able to get away. Stinger having been invested there from DeathPanter, but won't be able to retrieve it this time around, since it was, or Alka was able to wiggle away underneath the safety of that T1 tower. And I think Exordium has the right mentality. I do believe that they are approaching this game with the appropriate shot calling. It's really just about the execution that's rough for them. They should have looked to try and burn out StreakUp's Living Nightmare and then try to play aggressively on the Gold Fury. If StreakUp doesn't have Living Nightmare, he's not able to give Global Vision to Simplicity, and we might not see the same level of rotation. And you can bait out that Living Nightmare pretty easily. Just send Angry over. He could have even invested the Kraken, I think, and Exordium still would have had a fair play on that Gold Fury pool. But as it currently stands, Exordium are just getting beat to the punchline because they keep telling Simplicity the joke.
That was really, again, lovely how you stated that. That's kind of where I was going with that was, how do you make this move with a Chernobog on the map? Because it seems like metagame is the wrong term, but it's standard operating procedure to three-man group and try to invade a blue buff, for example. And you can do that versus virtually any composition. Chernobog is the only god in the game, maybe Athena, but Chernobog is very different in that he's carry. Chernobog is like the only god in the game that really makes that different. So how do you capitalize off of that? And one way is to look, bait it out on the right side and then go for the Gold Fury, real classic. If you don't have that opportunity, say you do need to look for that blue buff invade, how do you chase out StreakUp's ultimate elsewhere?
could just look to disengage. If you...
In and out, in and out.
Exordium, they've had a couple of instances of trying to invade that blue buff fairly stubbornly, too, at some instances, but they've still tried to commit to the call, which I can definitely respect from a team when they're at least trying to be on the same page. Right now, though, Simplicity are looking to punish Cozyx and Froisan for just trying to defend their own blue buff. Froisan's going to get that 9 turns blessing to save his life, but only momentarily. maniaK's already cleaned up one. maniaK, we're going to clean up the other now.
Oh!
But the World Serpent just a little too quick on the trigger finger there. But a successful invade for what it's worth. Might not have secured the blue buff, but maniaK's still got the kill.
Yeah, and that's what maniaK's going to do. You are totally on the desk, so there's not too many people, but maniaK is one of the guys that absolutely embody that Chulainn just, I'm going to push the lane, I'm going to push you, and that's what happens. Chulainn is not exactly in favor, so to speak. I think there are other characters that do a little bit more than what Chulainn does, but Chulainn does what Chulainn does. He's going to push you, he's going to knock you up, and he's going to be real annoying.
Well, he's perfect as well for sinking alongside of Faeles' Dharmic Pillars because everybody tries to avoid the edges of a Dharmic Pillars, and what does Chulainn want? Everybody to be grouped up so he can knock them all up at the same exact time. I don't think that the setup is flawless by any means. Simplicity have definitely had moments where there's room for punish, just like Alka trying to get a little proactive there against DeathPanter. A nice force out of that on Muzen Cobb's beads, but unfortunately at the expense of his own blink and epic uppercut.
Looking at player damage right now, just keeping an eye on that Ganesh. He's building into a utility build, which is ideal, but it is more power than I expected. The Pythax piece is going to help everybody on the team, and I love it. Pythax piece, double Hunter with a Fafnir, that's perfect. The Void Stone, the only other magic damage is Fafnir. That, you're not an Ares, you're not getting extra 30 power. I think I would have rather see some CDR here. I think really what you're looking for out of a jungle, out of Ganesh.
Then again, Dharmic Pillars
and Turn of Fate
alongside of the Void Stone. Kind of disgusting. If Faeles can find the appropriate lockdown, there's also a secondary stun potential with Genetics, Fafnir, Hammer Toss, and a team like Simplicity, I would almost expect the execution to be well coordinated.
That's the idea. Actually, yeah, sure. That's a mindset where if Faeles gets a carry on the laser, hits the charge for the laser, that carry could die with the right amount of power, right?
I mean, we talked about Faeles not having damage in the early game for the clear, but this isn't the early game anymore.
Right, now
we're approaching the mid game pretty rapidly as well due to Simplicity's early game success, but Faeles made it through the most difficult part of the woods. He's in the clear from here on out, and Simplicity going to be able to zone away the likes of Exordium with a simple Ganesh.
Nice play by Faeles. That's why I picked the character. 2 players behind enemy lines, and Simplicity are happy to see it. That said, a big Kraken coming out on DeathPanter, and Itori is going to be able to finish that one. Nice job there from the carry on Jing. Here comes the big worm as they look for the escape, and Alka going to fall down to Simplicity. StreakUp with the last hit. That's 2 for the carry. And Itori on the run. maniaKK finds the root. There's the hit. And number 11 for Simplicity.
maniaKK is just running rampant right now, not giving Exordium any space to think at all. The chase down potential from this Fafnir Chulainn Ganesh is unreal. Even if you kill DeathPanter, even if you kill StreakUp, it won't really make that much of a difference because Faeles has enough tools at his disposal with the Void Stone and even the Pythax to help out for bringing in that extra edge of damage.
Faeles here, so
it's big brain, but it's also troll brain.
It is, yes. So I mean, you could say it's taco brain.
In a sense, but I usually don't pull it off, to be fair.
So it's interesting when you look at Guardians in the jungle. A lot of because of the way SMITE is, Guardians do a lot of damage off of their base damage. And so
yeah, we love that.
When you're a Ymir or an Athena jungle, your level 1, your level 2 is actually kind of nasty. And then your base damage, thanks to your levels, are going up. You get some extra items. And boots +2, gotta love that, is where Guardian jungle really hits its stride. That's where you start to have enough damage and players haven't leveled up to have enough HP for your damage to fall off yet. So that last team fight was really scary for Exordium. Now, you see this transition more into defensive options here, I think. We think. We'll see what happens.
Whoa, this could be really scary for Exordium. Actually, Fafnir in that cohort stimming up double hunters. Cozyx trying to play defense here, but it's already been secured. Simplicity bring it down. Kraken has been wasted, essentially.
Too late.
And maniaKK just looking to collapse.
maniaKK is here just walking on people. Alka with a hair of HP. Here comes Cozy, walking on back, but Simplicity are off to the races. Stop that one. One big crit kind of keeps Simplicity back in their seats. But this is maniaKK. This is maniaKK, and I love that he's playing Chulainn. This is the most maniaKK game I've seen in a while because, and I mean with all due respect, there's nothing fancy about what maniaKK does. For the years that maniaKK has played, he has never wowed anybody with his how fancy or how glamour his plays are. He holds W, and he pushes you, and he makes you afraid of him. I always call him the powerhouse. He's not a delicate flower. He's just walking at you, and you have to walk away. It's really fun to watch here.
Brute force, definitely the mentality here from Simplicity. Just by the way that they barrel down that right-hand side. Sure, they didn't find any picks in the process, thankfully for Exordium, but taking down the T2 tower still creates a lot of space, a lot more map pressure to be applied. It's going to be much more difficult for Exordium to look for future challenges around that fire giant pit. And that's only to say if things go well. I mean, this is all under the assumption that this game doesn't just end fairly quickly because the lead that Simplicity have, 11,000 gold out in front, almost 10k XP in the process. And
that's huge.
It's very difficult for teams to recover at this stage, and I'm just not certain that Angry's going to be able to find enough relevant damage, even if he gets the perfect Kraken placement on DeathPanter. DeathPanter probably still wouldn't die just because of how far behind this Poseidon is in his itemization.
Yeah, it's a little bit rough there, especially going with utility for the gem. Supports blink forward, one will hit, one will miss, and the other gets hit. Alka down for the count, StreakUp with the last hit. That said, StreakUp gonna get punished. Nice job from the mid lane mage and the assist off of Cozy. It's a 1-for-2 so far, and Simplicity winning the fight. And once again, maniaKK finds him miles away from his own team, pushing the enemy team miles away from his own team. That's just what he does.
Exordium got one, but not the other. As long as DeathPanter is still kicking, Simplicity have more than enough push power here. maniaKK gonna look to zone away. Itori almost immediately. Froisan and Cozyx trying to do what they can to intervene, but it's just not enough. Simplicity have already dropped that left side Phoenix.
See, like, maniaKK chooses somebody that's not allowed to play. What is Tori supposed to do? maniaKK just says, no, you're not allowed to do this. And walks away.
I don't know about this decision here. Faeles going to take a decent chunk out of Tori's health with Ganesh, but
that's that damage no slouch.
This is a fake out.
They're going to chase
fake out.
down.
Alka's going too far forward.
Yeah, here comes the rest of Simplicity around the corner. DeathPanter and maniaKK are lying in wait. Froisan with the world's longest flank. Frenzy means fight, and Exordium are ready to go. Half HP already on the support, but the carries are healthy. DeathPanter, on the other hand, nails a crit on Alka and goes down. The support for Exordium does. Shoutouts to Yoda. 5-3, and Simplicity are going to make it 5-2. Froisan alive for the moment, and Simplicity grouping up strong, looking at the Titan.
Simplicity don't need to kill everybody, Tom. They just need to bring down this Titan, and with only 2 members left to play defense, it's looking like Simplicity's got game 1 in the bag.
It certainly does. You're looking at Froisan on the backside, and a nice Kraken, scratch that. It hits nobody. The damage from StreakUp and maniaKK is real, and the Titan falls down. 22 minutes of play, and Simplicity bring it home with a Ganesh jungle.
It was a good effort from Exordium, I think, to try and play defense towards the end there, but unfortunately, it was already too far out in front there from Simplicity. The punish needed to happen in the early game. Exordium tried to put the pieces of the puzzle together and was just shut down in the process, thanks to StreakUp's great rotations.
You know, like I think you said it perfectly in that game. Kind of big brain, kind of troll brain. That's game 1. We'll see what happens in game 2 after this.
SteelSeries, the official peripheral provider of the SMITE Minor League.
Welcome back to the minor league, everybody. That was an impressive victory for Simplicity, despite us getting just about everything wrong when it came to their draft. Totally, it wasn't DeathPanter on the Chernobog in the mid lane. He played the AMC.
That's right.
It did end up being Ganesh in the jungle, and honestly, Faeles played really well on it.
He did, on the Ganesh. Even going for his third ability, that dash at level 1 during the little 5-on-5 scuffle to ensure first blood for his team.
Now, he also got killed, because when you dash in at level 1, a lot of times you also get killed, but they got first blood, and that's really what matters. The big thing, though, Totally, I mean, if you're going to pick something like this, I mean, in your Faeles, you got to get some kills, am I right?
Sure, I mean, like, Ganesh, jungle, who doesn't think can get the kills, but at least he was 100% kill participation.
Yeah, but kills are what matter, Totally. That's
true.
what we gotta know. Of course, like right here, how doesn't he get this last hit?
I don't
That's
know.
all I'm saying, man.
Genetics, the support. Why would genetics last hit that?
Seriously, and I don't know. You just unlucky, I suppose, that Faeles doesn't get a single last hit and in 16 assists or whatever it is. In all seriousness, his silences, we saw a couple times Alka try and blink in on this Kumbhakarna and make something happen, only to be met by Faeles oming right in front of him, and he died before that silence even wore off. This is where the Ganesh ended up working, I suppose.
This was the team fighting composition. It was not just the Ganesh for the Dharmic Pillars and the Turn of Fate damage amplification. It was also genetics on the Fafnir for the attack speed steroid. It was a great demonstration out of Simplicity to execute these double guardians together.
They tried to make the double pride win sort of just ult all the time strat work, and they did it successfully. Faeles had full CDR, just a couple items in, cooldown boots into Pythax piece and a pride win after the Void Stone means that he's at full CDR and can ohm you off cooldown.
Yeah, the silence makes it really obnoxious. I don't expect Exordium to ban away the Ganesh after that performance, but maybe prepare for a level 1 shenanigans in game 2.
Yes, I would expect a comp that can deal with that pretty well. Let's see exactly what they do in picks and bans, but this time Exordium will be in the second pick position. Simplicity ends up with the first pick slot. It was the Jormungandr first pick last game for Exordium. It did fine, I would say. I don't know that Jorm is still the top pick that you want to take all the time in my mind.
I agree, but the problem for the Jormungandr was how much pressure was on his solo lane, just like the rotations from Faeles, also from genetics, contesting that blue buff. A Jormungandr without blue is just not as effective.
No, it's not going to be able to pressure nearly as much. You kind of need that a little bit of CDR as well on him because his cooldowns are pretty long. So Simplicity, I'm wondering if they're going to go with the same sort of heavy Guardian style this time around. I wouldn't be surprised to see genetics pull out the Horus again. He was very, very strong with that when it came to MSI, if my memory serves me properly. That's just a pick I think that we should be seeing more of is the Horus.
I agree. I think there's just so many good gods in SMITE in the support roles, like even PBM playing the Hercules from time to time, Aurora loving it, Neil can definitely pilot that god, so there's a lot of versatility when it comes to supports. And we all know genetics can easily play the assassins if he really wants to on top of it.
So Chronos banned by Simplicity is a bit surprising. They also did it in game 1, but I guess a little bit more surprising here because StreakUp, that's one of his signature picks alongside the Merlin. But both of those two things are banned, and it's just going to be the AMC first pick. AMC got a really substantial nerf, Totally, in the mid-season patch, but we still see him picked early and often.
A little bit of damage reduction on his Bee Swarm, a little bit of damage reduction on that passive Bee, so not as effective in clearing, but still obnoxious to deal with. The Cripple alone, and speaking of the Cripple, Exordium drafted Terra, which is heavily reliant on the dashes, so if it's going to be DeathPanter or StreakUp on the AMC, you got to be aiming at this Terra with the Stinger.
That is true, but at the same time, Terra can just root AMC if he doesn't have his ultimate up or he misses. It's hard for him to get out of those sorts of situations, so something to watch out for, I'd say, for AMC. But Chernobog AMC locked in once more. I still think these are flexible. We won't necessarily guaranteed see DeathPanter on the AMC this time around, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Simplicity looks like the exact same draft they had last game.
Yeah, it's going to be really solid for them if they're able to get that early game momentum compared to game number 1. They have the team fighting locked down with the attack speed of the double hunters. The question is, are they going to really run back this Ganesh jungle? Probably.
I don't think so. Honestly, I think Exordium might ban it from here. Especially with the Morrigan. The Morrigan really gets hurt by that silence. I mean, she's walking around in stealth. You just toss the Ohm out. All of a sudden, her pre-fire 1 is taken away, and she's revealed from the stealth. The Chulainn ban makes more sense. That is something that they played last game that can give Jormungandr some trouble. maniaKK, one of his signature picks, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like Ganesh is actually pretty good here for Simplicity.
Are we really going there? That Ganesh jungle is the play? Probably.
I mean, He played it really well.
Yeah.
It's good against Terra. It's good against Morrigan.
It really is, honestly, because you want to... This is a strategy, not necessarily of like, oh, Ganesh jungle is making the plays. Like, no, the Ganesh jungle is setting up the 2 backline hunters. That's the idea behind the Fafnir, and that's the idea behind the Ganesh.
Could work, but I don't know. I still don't think we'll see it for Simplicity 2 games in a row. Exordium now going to lock in the Pele, someone that doesn't get affected quite as much by the Ganesh and can still really put that early pressure on. A good transformation target for the Morrigan. I like the way Exordium has gone, but they didn't ban the Ares this time around. They did last game, and it's insta-locked for Simplicity, and boy, does it look great here. I mean, Terra really struggles against Ares.
Oh, yeah.
Morrigan can struggle. Pele doesn't mind too much, but Ares Horus as your last 2 picks is really strong. Again, a big front line for Simplicity, and then these 2 hunters to back it up.
Well, Ares going to be played by Faeles, I would assume, in that jungle position. Horus maybe in the solo lane, I'm expecting.
Maybe it's Ares solo, Horus jungle.
Could be even there. Should see some more highlight potential coming through out of Faeles if it is the Ares jungle. More than 0 kills this game.
Yeah, I think that's probably safe to assume that Faeles will get a couple more kills than he did in Game 1. Game 2, more weird Guardians and whatnot in the jungle. Let's throw it to the casters.
Well, we'll take it. But I think as far as weird Guardians of the Jungle are concerned, this one, Ares is normal. Ganesh, we'll talk about it later maybe. Or maybe I'm done talking about it. But Ares in the jungle, I have had a lot of fun talking about Ares in the jungle as of late, Taco. As I said the other day, I think he's just a standard pick now.
First thing I'm noticing, though, at this Simplicity draft, some minor tweaks, but the core is still the same. Genetics on the Fafnir, assisted by DeathPanter and StreakUp with the double hunter. This is an objective shred-based draft, and not only that, but I love the setup potential that's aligned because of maniaKK on this Horus. As soon as he goes for that knockup, Faeles has the easiest chains that you could probably imagine, and Genetics can also keep that CC chain going with the Hammer Stun. It's a ton of crowd control that I think Exordium could definitely run into some difficulties trying to toggle.
A different playstyle for maniaKK here in game number 2. Not going to just be walking down the opposition, but instead focusing on, like you said, that the setup capability here. And maniaKK's laning phase not going to be the greatest. That's why we see more of the support Horus. But with that said, Angry gets chained up here early game. Nice stun, and he's done. DeathPanter with the last hit. All that surprise burst damage.
I'm not taking it from Genetics. He can do that. They started it. That's all I'm gonna say. Game 1,
Yep.
I don't know about you guys, but I definitely heard those spam taunts coming out of Alka on Exordium.
I did, yep.
Genetics just dishing it back, and hey,
Yep.
player frustration is a total fair card to shoot on.
Well, I mean, I think yesterday we saw a play that you just chalk up to frustration. That is you can absolutely get in a player's mind here, and Genetics is pretty good at that.
Hey, he's just really letting Exordium have it, man. In the mid lane, Angry and Alka gonna have to figure something out to try and shut this Fafnir up, but hey, it's all about the gameplay. That's what it comes down to, and
Yep.
you can have your fun in SMITE, but at the end of the day, Simplicity, they're the ones who are up 1-0, and Exordium on the back peel.
Yeah, certainly having fun with it. Alka not going to be able to grab those harpies. Those belong to Simplicity. And a nice move so far. So maniaKK being a little bit weak here on the right side kind of echoes when Faeles was a little bit weak in the jungle side. And StreakUp is what covers that, right? Whenever Faeles got in trouble during the early game, particularly during that blue buff invade, we saw StreakUp use the Living Nightmare to come on over. If maniaKK does wind up in a problem getting dove under his tower because he can't push or clear the wave efficiently, StreakUp can join the party. And so I like this idea of these characters that are not super efficient in their role, but work well in the team fight later on, particularly with StreakUp to be that band-aid if things go awry.
Well, that's what tends to happen with teams that are as experienced as the likes of Simplicity. They can feel confident in having slightly weaker side lanes because StreakUp's probably not going to be able to exert a whole lot of pressure over Itori either. Hachiman has a relatively safe laning phase due to the mounted archery, plus Heavenly Banner gives you some decent poke-out potential that I'm expecting both of these hunters to just prioritize clearing out the minion waves, just looking to get as fed as possible from all that solo soak farm. But I really just think that this frontline setup that Simplicity has, it's going to be a nightmare, no pun intended, with StreakUp either, for Alka to just exist in.
I mean, it was trouble for him, and he was in the Kumbhakarna earlier. Terra, survivability, I think, is about even there.
Until you remember there's a no escape, there's chains, every single part of Alka's kit just shut down by an Ares.
That's a huge part of it.
Faeles could have looked for the no escape, actually chooses not to play aggressive up against the Terra. Could have forced those beads a little bit sooner, but I think Alka, knowing that he was going to probably be made the target on the Terra, that's also part of the reason why we see this Guardian with the purification beads.
And I love that choice. I think that is something that too few Guardians, too few supports are willing to do, is buy the beads. But it's as old as, I mean, I go back to when Khepri was murdering everybody, and support started buying beads because Khepri was abducting them and murdering them right when Khepri came out. And I'm talking 4 years ago, right? It's still the case. And Fenrir had a run as well at a certain world. I'm misremembering if it was season 3 or 4, where Fenrir was picked all the time, and he would just pick up your support and kill you. And very few supports would go, fine, I guess I'm buying beads. You are giving up a teamfight relic, but staying alive in those teamfights is more often than not more important than the 2 shots your shell would block.
And that's where the risk versus reward factor comes into play a little bit more so. Because for Alka, if he's able to pull off the early game woes and make it through, then this could be a really solid teamfight composition. StreakUp actually going to be the first casualty of war here as Froisan just runs the Chernobog down, something that Pele is really great at in the early game.
Absolutely. She's got the speed, and she absolutely knows how to use it. Looks like Simplicity want to get aggressive. Jumping forward is Genetics, and the stun is good, but Angry safe under the tower. Fails to go for the pull on Alka. But again, the support has the beads. And so the jungle Ares will not be successful on the pull. The ultimate will be up before those beads, and I expect not just the support, but also the mid lane to be the target for Faeles.
Angry came ready, though, transforming into the Terra, trying to give himself the best survivability option possible if he had been caught up in that no escape, but a draconic form essentially goes to waste here for Genetics. Couldn't quite find the mark. The waste is probably an incorrect term considering the fact that they did find Angry's purification beads and still have a possibility to play rather aggressively due to the fact that DeathPanter still has a Stinger, and Cripple can be pretty problematic for forcing out those beads on Alka or even just finding an outright burst damage kill onto Angry.
Side note, by the way, I love names like that. Just Angry. That is a top-tier Smite name.
I mean, that's most people who play Smite.
Oh, they're angry.
Well, you get angry at your teammates.
I agree.
I know I do from time to time. It's something about it, man. It's that classic love-hate relationship that we all have where you don't want to be salty with anybody and you hate yourself for it every time you are. But it just bleeds through, man. That rank just does something to the brain.
For me, and I don't pretend to be, Mr. Rogers or anything. I have my moments, but I'm usually good at especially I play in the gold with everybody else, right? I'm usually good with oh, you missed your abilities, if you're bad, I'm usually good with that. When you objectively steal my speed buff, it's over. We're never going to be friends again. DeathPanter wishing his friends were a little bit closer as Pele shows up, but there's StreakUp again. Fails, gets 2 pulls, and the Horus ultimate's going to come on through. Froisan being chased down and undoubtedly killed. Double kill for the jungle Ares, and that's the difference. Is Ganesh the god of pacification? It's something like that, but Ares is the god of war, and that's what that looks like. 2-0-1 here already for the man out of the UK. Not done yet. Well, I guess he is done. Missing the chains there.
Cutting it close, though, for Angry, trying to do a little wiggle to get away from those shackles, but Faeles will be slightly off the mark here, and in fact, that will be Angry's point of retreat, but the response was vicious from Simplicity. Sure, Exordium was able to find DeathPanter, but when you factor in what it cost Exordium to get that lone pick, you almost have to wonder, is it really worthwhile for Froisan to keep trying to invest so many resources to look for that pick onto one of these hunters, and that's the problem. That's, you know, it's still pretty early on in the game. We haven't even hit 10 minutes yet, and I get that, but it can be unsettling as Exordium to see a team fight kind of deteriorate so rapidly when it started out so well.
I'm on your page now, and it's tough, man, because Exordium, it feels like you said in game number 1, they were doing the right thing, just not doing it. They were thinking the right play and pulling the right card and just not able to execute. And here, I think they're able to execute. It's just maybe they didn't anticipate as much as Simplicity could smack back with. So I'm with you for that team fight specifically. Looking at how game number 1 went and that team fight, as I think I'm higher on Exordium here in game number 2 than I was in game number 1, just based off of the 9 minutes that we've seen so far.
Well, Froisan's also had a significantly easier time trying to maneuver through this jungle. Pele not going to be as affected by the Ares chains due to volcanic eruption, being able to help her close the gaps, and all of her natural sustain is going to further assist in terms of trade-outs with the Ares or with any of the other members. But I like the idea here from Exordium. I like that Froisan is trying to be proactive on the map.
Right.
I think it's exactly the kind of space control you need to have from a Pele, because the early game is where you're meant to reign as Pele.
Exactly, the early game for sure, and I sit here, we broadcast 3-4 different leagues. I sit here for 40 hours and tell you guys that proactive play is almost always the right thing to do. If you're going to react to every play, even if you punch back just as hard, you're always punching back, and there will be a moment where your opponent makes the play to put you in checkmate, and you're not allowed to return fire. And so I like the idea from Exordium. It's a little bit different for Froisan. It's not as hard. You know, he was up against one of the more oppressive junglers in game number 1. Okay, I'm kidding there. But the Pele selection for him is the real part where he's just able to rotate. And those moments, that's going to be a big deal. Tied here at 11. In game number 1, this was already kind of Simplicity's game. So
Interesting. So that was a Morrigan transformation into the Chernobog. Angry utilizing it to get back to the mid lane a little bit faster, which I can respect the decision making there, but kind of telegraphing to Simplicity that Morrigan's Changeling is now on cooldown could be dangerous territory here. But what I really want to see from Exordium as this match continues to progress throughout these early phases, I want to see wrecking ball mentality.
Yeah.
This is a composition that you just have to be all in for, because it is all or nothing against Simplicity here. Simplicity is the one with tools at their disposal for reinitiation. You've got Ares, you've got Fafnir, and a Horus. There is lots of die potential, lots of rundown potential, but not if Exordium's able to blow them up before they can get to that stage.
that's the key. That's the key. Is and that's what's difficult for Exordium, I think. Simplicity looking for the the Gold Fury, and it's going to go down before anyone from Exordium can even show up. Nice job, the double hunter composition, plus Fafnir really showing what it can do. Faeles, tosses a chain in there, here or there. But Exordium and Simplicity, we were talking earlier. Actually, Tucker, was it yesterday or today that we were talking about it, identifying and understanding when you are the underdog in the match? I think it was yesterday. That's one thing that underdogs have a problem with, is being aggressive against Simplicity. If you're Exordium, you're going up against a team that, you watched on TV. This team came here to our studios in Alpharetta, and Exordium are like, oh man, look at these guys. But you have to push forward with this composition. You have to take it to them. You cannot be afraid, and that'll be a big hurdle mentally for this team to get over.
I don't think Exordium is intimidated by Simplicity, though. I think Alka proved that in game 1, that intimidation is the least effective instance here against Exordium. But the problem is really just all in the execution. Exordium kind of floundered on a couple of their shot calls for execution, and well, Simplicity just going to take advantage of that. They are a veteran roster, a veteran team. They have a really good understanding of when and when not to play aggressive, when and when not to disengage. And I think that what I chalk up to lack of experience mostly for Exordium is the fact that they have a much more difficult time at kind of understanding where everyone is throughout a team fight, because when these team fights start to break out, the thing about double hunters is you're going to have two separate points of aggression typically, and or at least Simplicity can afford to do so because they've got DeathPanter with Muzen and StreakUp with the Chernobog, who can kind of rotate wherever after the fact. So it's never a direct team fight for Exordium in Game 2. And that's why Exordium has to just stay grouped up, and if there is a confidence problem, well, they're doing a pretty damn good job at not showing it as they pull the Pyromancer.
maniaKK looking for the zone, and the ultimate as he tries to help his team on the back line. Cozy trying to make other players not so much. Pyromancer still the thought for Exordium. Tie game still here at 15 minutes. That's the important part. Yeah, but no, and I'm impressed, and maybe I by no means did I mean to imply that Exordium were suffering from that. That's just a hurdle, and I agree with you. I think that they've kind of largely jumped over it by picking this style of composition. I think you have identified that you're ready to go. I'm here on the execution, like you said, and right now things for Exordium have been up and down. Pyromancer is fine. The fight after the fact, DeathPanter. Beautiful play coming out from Angry, and Froisan's going to be the one finishing that off. Mid lane for support. Exordium has the upper hand right now, in my opinion. Corey has to run away. maniaKK with the flank and the flash. There's Cozy getting the kill on Faeles. Beautiful play. Genetics is here. If Tori gets out, this is a win for Exordium, and Genetics makes sure that that is not the case. Nice play again from the support.
But this could be trouble now for Angry. Going to get spotted out. maniaKK slightly off the mark. A trade out for another trade out. These respawn timers all looking pretty similar after that last exchange. But Exordium arguably still possibly coming out on top here. Cozyx going to be able to confirm his own blue buff. But check out Froisan. Departed that team fight rather early on. Could tell that it had mostly dissipated and decided to just invade farm Simplicity's duo side of the map. So even though Gold Fury or that Primal Fury is still due to respawn for another minute or so, it's going to be a slight blow to DeathPanter not having that red buff, and the concern that Exordium with that timer is now going to be able to look for future invades yet again.
After that team fight, teams like Simplicity are starting to inch up because of the Pyromancer, more so than the team fight. But that was promising, Taco. Like we said, execution has kind of been the issue here. And Exordium, they did what they wanted to do. Angry got the flank with the invisibility and almost deleted DeathPanter with the one shot. Was able to finish it off with help from his friends. And then they lose Alka, but they're taking down DeathPanter. They're taking down some of the carries. That's the goal for Exordium.
It was a decent exchange, but I think my gripe with the fight is that Exordium did get a little bit more disjointed than Simplicity as it continued to develop, and that's the real concern here, because Genetics and maniaKK have been stuck at the hip. They are definitely just trying to power through everything together because they're CC chain is disgusting, honestly. And they have the damage when Genetics is in that Draconic transformation. Right now, Angry going to be made the target, but those purification beads still having been available are going to be the only thing Simplicity managed to force out.
You know, when it comes to those team fights, you mentioned that Exordium had a harder time kind of keeping it together as it goes on, and that's where experience comes in. You know, I ask that Exordium kind of not get intimidated, and that's something that you don't need experience, you just need a certain amount of chutzpah, right? Hold that thought as we get into our Gold Fury push right now. But I do want to talk about that level of experience in the team fights. It's easy. Well, that's, I think, simplifying it. But it's one thing to identify your team fight and go, all right, here's the plan. Angry's going to flank. We're going to get the pick on DeathPanter. Froisan walks him down, and we finish it off with Cozyx doing the thing. Then when you finish that, what do you do? And the experienced teams, like you said, players can stick together. They've done this team fight 700 times. They've seen different variables and different outcomes. Exordium sits there or teams with less experience sit there and they go, all right, we did what we planned. And that ad-lib, that scat phase of the team fight, if you will, that's harder to keep control of. And I think that's why it unraveled. Gold Fury pulled by Exordium.
Simplicity seem content to let Exordium work this Primal Fury down for them just a little bit lower here. Genetics still staying local though. Simplicity don't want to let this Primal Fury go for free, but the way that Exordium successfully
Frenzy.
zoning them out, this could be dangerous.
Oh, but the pulling forward from maniaK, it still belongs to Exordium. Well played, their first objective, and DeathPanter's gonna go down. The double Snake Man. maniaK dashes forward to the team, and here's one ult. On top of it, Itori gets maniaK. You know, I really just wanted both of them to ult, just for fun.
They don't need to both ult at the same time though. It'd be
It's
rather
important that
hectic
they
if they did.
It's important that they didn't, frankly.
Oh,
It would have looked cool.
this could be dangerous though.
This,
I'm not sold on a Fire Giant pool when only Froisan and Cozyx have their ultimates available. Keep in mind, Faeles still has that no escape. Nice zone though from Cozyx, but Genetics and StreakUp gonna try and intervene.
25% on the big boy. Genetics on the left and StreakUp on the right. Gets Froisan with one shot. Alka's still here, but the carries aren't available. Angry is trying to find the damage, and here comes Faeles. StreakUp gets the double kill. Faeles gets another one. Fire Giant goes down to Simplicity. Alka's gonna get jumped on top of it, and Faeles gets another one. A split penta between two players, plus the Fire Giant. Exordium, we asked that Exordium be afraid of nothing. But sometimes fear is what it is to be human. And Simplicity show up and are anything but mortal. Mid lane Phoenix is going to be the target. Genetics leading the charge. 7 seconds on players.
Not a chance.
Didn't think so.
Not a chance. Game won't be over just yet, but that decision making from Exordium, that's where the inexperience really comes to light.
The game's not over, but after that play, if I'm on Exordium, it might just feel like it is. Because that was our moment.
I think it is safe to call that as a game-ending play.
It's tough.
Because Fire Giant is involved.
Exactly. It's so tough because you're sitting there for Exordium, and you can't help but feel for the underdog. Not only did they make the right, and because it's what we asked for, not only did they make the right decision on that Gold Fury, but they played that Gold Fury really, really well, Taco. That was a well-executed team fight. And then they cross the street and walk into the police station and go, please arrest me. And Officer Faeles and Deputy StreakUp come through and throw him in the drunk tank. And now Simplicity are up 7,000 gold with a Fire Giant. Already got a Phoenix. You hate to see it.
Or you love to see it if you're a fan of Simplicity. They were in a little bit of trouble there. Exordium were starting to pull away with things on their team fight, but that Fire Giant is going to stabilize and make sure that all is well in the world of Simplicity here. maniaK has had a couple of struggles with this Horus, mostly in just getting it off in time. Exordium has done a great job at blowing up this Horus before he has an opportunity to try and interfere or escape, but I can see and understand why Exordium would think that they could pull the Fire Giant, but the moment that Faeles, Genetics, and StreakUp showed up, that's where you abandon them. You don't pull it down to 40% HP and then decide, okay, maybe we can leave it.
Cozy gonna go with the big ult and look for the left side. Exordium largely spread out, and that was a problem last time. Love the decision for Cozy to stop chasing. StreakUp dives deep, and maniaK gonna help him get out if he survives, and he does. Nice job one more time there, escaping.
A little awkward there for Horus when you just get stuck ulting in front of everybody. It's kind of like the Ares no escape, but worse because you're literally doing nothing while you're channeling that. But Faeles doing a whole lot of something here. Pulls the beads from both Angry and Froisan, but the damage is too much. That Morrigan's falling all the same. Froisan going to get forced out also, and without that volcanic eruption, no one left to try and prevent Faeles from stripping that speed.
Emergency. I need the Observer to mouse over Gem of Isolation real quick. This is a problem. That's not an aura item. I didn't realize there was two. Ares has purchased all aura items. That's on me, Doug. I love you. All aura items except Gem of Isolation. It's a misbuy. It's a misbuy.
That's not a misbuy. It's Gem of Isolation on Ares. It's disgusting.
But what if it was he bought a mystical male?
The amount of damage he's going to be able to get off with that Gem of Isolation, that's more ticks into the mystical male.
Big brain.
It works together.
Big brain, but troll brain.
No, this is not troll in the slightest. I really want to clarify that. This is a very legitimate itemization choice.
So, jokes aside, it's because we never see mystical male anymore. But Meerkat has done the math. It is a ton of damage per minute. What is it? 40 damage a tick?
Searing Flesh plus mystical plus Gem of Isolation. You are not getting out alive.
No, so
I will put it that simply.
Change is already slowing you about 20%, and then you're getting slowed from the gem, and then the mystical male.
3%.
Yeah, that's
3% on that Searing Flesh.
there. It is. 40 magical damage per second. Of course, protections are taken into account, but you're just pulsing 40 damage plus these dots, and you know what would be dirty? Imagine if mystical male applied on-hit effects, and you could just walk around slowing players with Gem of Iso mystical
don't think
male.
that would be dirty. I think that would be broken. You know what else? Oh no, we've already. I can't do a Mannequin Scepter joke.
Oh, Mannequin Scepter. That one of the few items that didn't make it off the PTS.
What if Ares bolster defenses actually just became the item choice for empowering minions?
Oh wow!
What if we brought that one back? The Motivate.
Well, you know what? That might be an even trade because Bolster Defenses is one of the most underloved abilities. It gives your team 40
It is so
prots.
underappreciated.
40 prots. Fire Giant going to be started and finished here by Simplicity, and Faeles is just cooking. Angry gets DeathPanter. That's his job and what he's done so far. Unfortunately for Exordium, that's all they've been able to get so far. DeathPanter has died 4 times and nobody else more than 2. Exordium's still fighting in, and StreakUp could fall down. That'd be a huge play for the red team, and it finally does happen. Froisan with the dive, but maniaKK dashes forward to keep them at bay. Exordium, not the team with the Fire Giant, but the team with the momentum. Faeles is going to grab one, and the rest of Exordium are watching. They're low, so they're afraid to go deep, Taco.
This is too deep, though, from Exordium. Might have bit off more than they could chew, because Alka's going to lose his Purification piece in the process, but Angry's who's getting turned and burned. Genetics with that Draconic Transformation. Still looking to try and run down Alka. This Terra is not out of the frying pan just yet, Tom. He has got to keep it moving. Can't really afford to turn back either, because I would not be surprised if Simplicity keeps trying to get that chase go through.
2 blinks burned. Faeles finally turns around after the tier 2. The minions are here, though, so that's going to be a tower. Simplicity up over 10,000 gold at the 27-minute mark. 5 kills. Exordium's senior as well. And Simplicity certainly feeling it.
Well played, though, from Exordium.
Much better game.
Probably should have tried to work into that Fire Giant pit a little bit sooner, but had some difficulties considering that they were coming off of the respawn timers there, thanks to some nice picks out of Simplicity, and you have to play around your relic game. Carries without relics can't really afford to be up close and personal against the likes of a Fafnir and an Ares, or even the Horus. maniaKK has enough control in his own right that he could probably prevent anyone from Exordium from leaving the area as quickly as they need to. The collapse was decent. They just didn't find enough picks right away. And that's where the real punish came from Exordium. Should have abandoned the chase after that pick onto StreakUp.
I agree. As soon as you get that hunter, you got to walk out. StreakUp is who you're kind of trying to get the entire time as well. That's the goal there. Simplicity here answering back as they walk up the mid lane.
You know what it is with Exordium?
Shoot.
They're the team that you can't have your cake and eat it too, but Exordium keeps trying to force feed themselves.
I get that. I get that. You know, it's you're really it's the other side. I feel like they got starved in game number 1, and so the second they get a bite, they just want to eat the whole thing, and then they're stuck and slow, and everybody kills them after the fact. Genetics leading the charge here for Simplicity. No bites. Ping's coming out as maniaKK makes his way to the left-hand side. Alka does have vision in the mid lane, so nobody will be able to get that back off. Exordium here, 4-1 split. The Morrigan will be looking for the flank. There is ward vision, so if she's not invisible, and Faeles is watching it anyway, another baby step towards. Angry's going to go to the transformation, makes a little bit of a mistake, and gets caught out. Simplicity still have yet to do the Phoenix, though. It's about 25%, maybe less, 20% done to the bird. Angry, as soon as that transformation is done, though, just gets surrounded. He made a mistake being there in the first place, and then he made a mistake not ulting out. Frenzy is Pop Taco, and the mid lane's going to be the target.
Exordium hoping to try and hold up here against the likes of Simplicity, but Genetic's already in that Draconic Transformation. Cozyx looking to get pulled in, but Faeles gonna find only one. Alka with the no escape. Cozyx with that World Serpent trying to create a little bit of disruption on the backline, but Alka's already fallen.
The dot damage from Faeles a little bit too strong. maniaKK comes through and gets his 4th of the contest. 3 players in Exordium jerseys are on the floor, and with Itori, that'll make 4. Cozy the only one alive, and it do not matter. Simplicity are going to the base, they're going to the race, and it looks like they're going to take this game. A half hour of play at game number 2, and Simplicity takes the set.
A little bit more of a bite back from Exordium, but unfortunately could not stay all the way on top of things. They had some moments of momentum, but just could not keep a firm grasp on it. And in these matches against teams like Simplicity, you can't really afford the slightest bit of a slip up. They will take that full advantage the whole way through.
And with that said, let's take a look at the numbers. I liked what I saw out of Exordium here in game number 2. I think game number 1 was a forgettable experience, but here in game number 2, understanding how strong Simplicity is, I mean, this is the performance you kind of want to put on. You get an objective on your own terms. You go and you make a really big egregious mistake that you could watch the VOD from and learn. You win some of those team fights and then lose after by going for a little bit more. This is a team that is very easy to say, just clean it up a little bit and you're good. So another one goes this way. Simplicity the victor. We'll be back with more minor league action.